Live, so I'm just gonna change the audio once it. Wow, these glasses are great for reading, but not for computer.
Oh, really? Huh. They don't have the Cody?
No, I don't know what they have. I'm just gonna change the audio. Okay.
You're live.
I'm gonna record. Were you ready?
Almost.
Okay.
Almost. Your videos live.
Well, the thing I liked is that they definitely write their stuff down, so it gets me to. Well, I write it down too. But it's nice to hear other people are actually doing it.
No, I get that. But you usually would smell. I'm just surprised when you don't smell the
No,
snake.
there was a little seasoning in it.
Okay, good.
But
That's all I'm saying. We don't need to
but they
like
weren't-
go too far. Like
They weren't. It didn't seem like they were. Well, I don't know. I couldn't tell if they were selling anything.
I'll go back and listen now that you
Kirk
guys are
would
talking
normally
about it.
be the canary in the coal
What's the
mine.
name of the podcast? Let's tell people about it since you guys have been listening to it. What is it called?
Well, I only listened to one episode. What if the others are terrible?
Okay, hold on a second.
I don't want to throw anyone under the bus yet. Let me listen.
We're
to
live on YouTube right now. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
So does that mean we can record?
Yes.
Kirky went full silent mode.
Well, he's a thoughtful friend.
Is that what you call a stoic?
Maybe.
Isn't he a descendant of the Roman philosopher Diabetes?
Betas.
Diabetes?
The original bearded clam. Okay. I think that's it.
All right, you ready?
Ed looks like a young Bruce Dern today.
Oh yeah? Dag burn it. Maybe that's why I'm so fiery.
Because he's the guy who always played like the creepy mental.
He is an underrated actor. He was
He
in a
is.
lot of great 70s films. His daughter Laura Dern was in pretty
Oh, yeah, I
much
remember
every
Laura
David
Dern.
Lynch film.
I know. Well, you ready?
Well, you guys got me fired up. I appreciate you guys. Let's have a very fun show. I've already been blessing it and imagining everyone else being blessed by it. So, Kirk, you can go mute and camera off, and we'll get this thing started, and we'll bring you in.
Are you ready?
Are we recording?
Yes.
All right.
Welcome to The Funniest Thing,
Yes.
where each week we share stories about how stepping out boldly always leads to better than expected outcomes.
That is correct.
I'm Darrell,
I'm Ed.
and we're broadcasting live from Middle School Studios in beautiful downtown Culver City, the heart of Screenland.
Yes.
And Ed, did you learn this topic in school? I think a lot of us learned it somewhere.
That's right. That's so true. Unhappiness is learned. Unhappiness is learned with Kirk Kjeldsen, also known as Dr. Kirk. That's what I found out. He doesn't, it's a blessing to Kirk, though, because he's not a type of person who throws around his titles. So Darrell kind of jokingly put it in as Dr. Kirk, and I just threw it in, and then I didn't know what was going on, but he is an amazing professor, an amazing screenwriter, amazing person who practices this stuff every day, so we love him. And he's a big part of our lives and helping us stay on this metaphysical path. So we were going to talk to him in the second segment, but in the book, Creative Responsibility, which I have, if you're looking at us on YouTube, you can see it. I have a copy right here. Darrell said it's getting harder to get a hold of this since we've been talking about it, just because the copies have been flying off the Amazonian shelves.
Well, because it's no longer in print, so I think a lot of our listeners have been buying it up.
Yeah.
Because you can only get it used. And I went to get a copy for Lori's father, and I was like, holy cow, there's only three, like different,
Yeah.
like three of these books left.
Wow. It is a very practical and pretty quick read. I just finished it yesterday. So in the book, Creative Responsibility, C. Thomas Sikking, the son of Sue Sikking, who was a prominent Unity minister, right out here in Santa Monica, no less. So C. Thomas Sikking highlights the truth that happiness is our natural and normal state, and we can be happy if we allow ourselves to be. We learn to be unhappy as children and get better and better at it as we grow up. In a very true sense, we become successfully miserable. On this episode, Darrell and Ed discuss how easy it is to let go of all the ways that we've learned to be unhappy. It's time to drop the rocks of unnecessary fear, doubt, and worry and utilize your supernatural power of happiness. And during the second segment, I didn't cross that one out. And during the second segment, Kirk Kjeldsen, author, professor, screenwriter, motivates listeners to live successfully via happiness with today's reading, Active Happiness.
Isn't it funny that actually being miserable, becoming successfully miserable, people are quite proud of how miserable they are?
Oh my God, yes.
It used to be called martyrdom or being a martyr. Now it's changed and it's victimese. Being a victim is now the cool kid topic. Everyone has something that they could proudly say is a handicap.
Right.
And we're here to say that that's all just learned BS.
Yeah, and it's also just not understanding the full process of healing. Like there's a moment where you realize, oh my God, this has been going on or this happened, but it's important to then move to the solution, to the happiness, and to realize that happiness is actually a possibility, because a lot of people have given up on the hope that happiness is a reality, that it's simple, that it's our natural state, like C. Thomas Sikking said. That's actually also what I was reading Raymond Charles Barker in Power of Decision, and he was saying he doesn't work with people anymore who have not already made the decision that they can be happy and healthy and well, and that it's unnecessary to remain in that condition. Like you're saying, that's the key. It's like you get to the point where you might see this temporary condition or something that happened, but recognizing that it's unnecessary to stay there, it's unnecessary to hold on to it, it's unnecessary to continue to define ourselves by that. We forgive ourselves, we let it go, and then step into our wholeness, and that's where happiness resides. And I just happened to have a postcard that Kirky sent us, and if you want to send us anything, you can send it to Funniest Thing, P.O. Box 1312, Culver City, California, 90232. And Kirk was just mentioning this before we jumped on the air. There's a quote from Sang San. It's like I think that's a Chinese name. It says, "If you work on your mind with your mind, how can you avoid an immense confusion?" And then, "Nobody wins the monkey dance" is something that he overheard. And he said, take that to the bank. And so we're going to talk about some of the simple ways we stay happy. But while we're talking, let me just read. We ought to say thank you also to Lois Conklin. She sent us a card that said, "Thinking of you." She said, "Sending smiles and hugs your way, Darrell and Ed, an angel blessing to light your way to today, dear friends. May you walk with the knowledge that all is well in your world today and that you are loved. Blessings of joy, love, peace, wonders, and grace. Love from Lois Conklin." And she sent us a nice tithe along with it. Also, we got, let me just say this, we got an email from Catherine Powell. Said, "Hi, Darrell and Ed. My mom and I are at Unity Village. We're thinking about you. It's beautiful, hot as it can be. As you know, Missouri can be that way, but really beautiful. I wish I could jump in one of the pools and play in the fountains. I hope you are both doing great. I can't wait to listen to the next episode of Funniest Thing. Love, Catherine Powell." Thank you for reaching out, Catherine, and thanks to everyone on the Patreon who's been supporting the show. It really helps. As you know, there's no commercials on our show. We like to just keep the truth flowing, and those Patreon contributions really help that. So if you haven't started contributing and you're getting something out of the show, you can contribute as little as $3, whatever you want, $2, $5, $25 each month. And it just keeps this divine energy flowing through the show. It makes it, we really appreciate it. Patreon.com/funniest thing.
Right. Well, happiness is about letting go, because what I was trying to say earlier, I just touched on it, is people take pride in their labels of hardship or limit. No, they take pride in these ideas or labels of limitation.
Yes.
And you could, and they love talking about it, and they're encouraged. They're almost, everyone is now, most people join in with others in celebrating each other's limitations. There's a good little paragraph in Creative Responsibility, which I can't find at this moment. We read it on a previous episode where he was saying that it's not your upbringing, it's not, whether or not you had two parents, one parent, whether or not what state or country you began your life in. It really is all about how willing are you to let go of the story of hardship and being a victim and accept your true identity, not even a new identity, but your true identity of being happy, joyous, free, prosperous, enjoying good health, happiness, love, success, prosperity, and money. And here it says, the hard fact is that you are where you are socially, financially, emotionally, and physically because of your own thinking processes up to this point. What you will be in the future will be determined by your own mental activity now. That's it. This is the good news. Yes. That no matter what has happened before today, that the moment we start thinking in the direction we want or desire to go, which means less about our story of woe and more about the joy of living and the things we would really want to enjoy in life and the things that we're already enjoying in life, well, then we're now on the fast track to experiencing those things coincidentally in our life, because now we're cooperating with God. So I'll continue reading this because it's really good. What you will be in the future will be determined by your own mental activity now. If your thinking process does not change significantly, neither will your life and lifestyle. Change your thinking patterns and you change what you are. You change what you are. Most psychiatrists and psychologists agree that people tend to become exactly as they imagine themselves to be. It follows then that if you change your thinking habits, you change what you are. King Solomon said that 3,000 years ago, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Yep. And it's an amazing fact that I have to keep reminding myself to embrace. And here's another good Bible verse, and it has a little insert in it to make it clear what it means. We've talked about this before, and it's where Jesus is talking to the paralytic at the side of the river. And he says, thy sins are forgiven thee, arise and walk. Go and sin, and in parentheses, think negatively no more. And that's from Mark chapter 2. Thy sins are forgiven thee, arise and walk. Go and think negatively no more. So it really is a letting go process. How willing am I to let go of my old stories of woe? And then I was thinking this morning, because whenever we're doing the show during my morning routine, I was reading some great little things from the books we recommend, like Around the Year with Emmett Fox, A Deep Breath of Life by Alan Cohen, and some others. And I started thinking to myself, it's funny how much happiness, the idea of being happy, is dismissed as not being legitimate or not being a substantial power to be encouraged or adopted as a way of life. It's almost dismissed as, that's okay. But that's really not going to solve this problem, being happy. Or how is happy? It's insane. And this came up because I recently saw a documentary on Netflix on the band ABBA. And I normally shy away from documentaries about celebrities or musicians because they tend to frame them as this person is magically way more like an anomaly, like a unicorn you could never become. And then they also have this, they're way better than you, but they're also way more inflicted. They can't just be happy doing what they're doing.
And they magnify the
truth.
drama
Yeah.
and make it all seem so real, like tough and struggling, like you're saying. Yeah,
But
totally.
not in this case. This was done so well, and it's brand new, and the people from ABBA were narrating through it. And here was the thing. They were totally like destroyed by critics as being corny, cheap, too happy, and during times like these, how could you sing about, all just this Pollyanna stuff?
Right.
But here's the thing. Their records were going to #1, but the intellectual community, no, they're trite. They're not really to be taken seriously. They're a bubblegum group.
Right.
And I was thinking, holy cow, how is this not affecting them? Hearing all this. And the group members would keep reiterating through the documentary how, when this came up, and you would see them in live interviews from the past going, well, we can only really write what we really enjoy, and they're smiling, what we really enjoy playing, and what we really have fun doing. We don't really think of it as trying to come up with something, specific. And it just made me feel so good about the truth of happiness is a powerful force. It changed my life and made me financially secure.
Yeah.
Since I was 23.
Right.
Because I had no parents to fall back on or anything like that. And I had no any idea of a career or how I was going to earn a living. I really had no direction. And Mike Dugan pointed out about a successful man that we both knew and told me, Jack's the happiest guy you'll ever meet. And at that time, I was dismissing happiness because I thought it was based on outside things make you happy. And I said, of course he's happy, Mike. He's rich. And Mike disappointedly looked at me and just said, he's not happy because he's rich. He's rich because he's happy. And for some reason that clicked in my mind, that happiness from within, meaning as long as I could keep deleting all the mental states and emotional states that make me feel bad, anger, envy, resentment, self-pity, depression, all these thoughts that bring about those emotions, if I could just work on letting go when those thoughts crop up by dismissing them spiritually, saying no to them and reminding myself of these 3 things I'm going to read now. This is what came to me this morning thinking about the show. I wrote, let's get serious about happiness. Because no one takes it seriously. I'm glad they don't, because, serious is just fear pretending to act like a grown-up.
Yeah.
But I'm saying happiness is the magnet, and it's from within. And then I thought about it, I go, because of the ABBA documentary, I realized, and the health benefits of happiness. Any doctor and psychologist, they're trying to get you to an optimistic attitude to help promote the happiness. So I wrote, happiness is enduring, desired, and beneficial. And it's enduring because all those things that were going on when ABBA was popular in history, where all the critics were saying, they're not taking this seriously. They're singing this during times like this. Well, guess what, folks? We can't even remember those things. They're gone.
Right.
But these songs live on and bring so much joy that a successful Broadway show came out of those same songs and 2 movies. So there's something going on here that we naturally desire and crave because it's healing. So I also remind myself when I would get afraid of anyone doing harm to me, or I felt like in the past, I felt like maybe I did a disservice to someone. You know how those regrets come up?
Yes.
And you think, oh, they have a right to punish me now.
Right.
Well, the thing I do is I remind myself, pray for their happiness. And you're going to probably think this is trite and selfish, but I don't care because it's benefiting all of us, including the person I'm saying this for. When people are happy, number one, they're going to attract more good in their life. But for everyone's sake, they have no desire to stick it to others. Right. So pray for the happiness. So I thought, how do we generate a happy attitude? And I saw there's 3 things that do it for me. 1, I have to trust in God as good, not as fickle, not as a punisher, but trust in God as good and a caring force. Then 2, I remind myself that my thoughts of good are in agreement with God and have mountain moving power. That when we're thinking good, like if we're thinking, oh shoot, when I get there's probably going to be no parking spaces, or I'm going to have to see this person, and I don't really want to. Well, I have to make a decision to let go of that learned and negative anticipatory attitude, let go of that and go, no, I'm going to jump on board with God because that's the truth of good. And I'm going to imagine things going in a wonderful way. And here's the key point. This is number 3. When we look forward, we got to look forward to all things working together for good, but in unexpected and miraculous ways, without my meddling, or, without meddling or trying to outline it. Just know that it's going to work out in some wonderful way. And this could be for short-term things like going to a doctor's appointment, or it could be for long-term things like a desire or goal that you have. Imagine it working out. Imagine that thing happening, but don't necessarily outline it. And in another book I read from this morning called Touchstones, it had the great little, where did I put it? If I can't find it, we'll move on. But it had something in here. I made a note of it, and it said this. So if I do feel the urge to scheme or forcing a thing, I got to go back to number 1. Trust in God is good. Remind myself that my thoughts of good, of this working out well, are in agreement with God and have mountain moving power. And finally, wraps it all up. And this was in one of our readings. It may be my script, meaning we're allowed to embrace the desire, but I'm not the director, and it's certainly not my theater. Meaning all I got to do is know that I can enjoy the successful completion of my desired goal in mind, but know that I have a professional director hired who's arranging everything. Yeah. To know that I have a professional theater owner who's making sure all that part of the show is being handled. And that is God or good or whatever you choose to call that force.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's sort of interesting that quote about you can't use your mind to change your mind or struggle, but it is being, and yet it is about being vigilant, like about what our thinking is doing and knowing when to let go, because like you said, I like that in this case. It's so funny. I mean, this is the way this show goes. And it's funny because I like what you said about, what did you say about happiness is the serious.
Let's get serious about
Yeah,
happiness.
it's perfect because
Let's get
words are
serious
all
about it.
relative, right? Like, so in that case, it's perfect because it helps you realize that the only thing to be serious about is happiness, but
Yes.
being happy is the release from seriousness. And that goes with what I've been affirming from Abraham Hicks this week. Esther Hicks says often, just remember, there's nothing serious going on here. And I've uncovered a pocket of seriousness inside my consciousness that was step up, and like when I'm ready to take a leap of joyous childlike faith, has a million reasons why I shouldn't do it, why I'm bad for doing it, like why my joy is wrong or silly or trite, and it's so when I've been laying in the morning, I'll just affirm, because I've been feeling this like angst, but rather than jump out of bed to meditate immediately like I'm running from a fire, I lay there and I say, there's nothing serious happening here. Because I'm learning to take more authority within my own consciousness in a loving way, that reminding myself of the things that you're talking about, which is that God is good, that God is taking care of me. And it's funny, like I've been reading this Landon Brown book, Brown Landon, who we read something from him from Michael Schoonover recently. And it's kind of an interesting book. The one I got, it must have been, it's like not in print or whatever, so it's pretty laid out in like this really weird way. And it's like, he's very scientific. He was a scientist, and he did amazing things. He was a doctor, he was a scientist, he was a secret agent for the US under 2 presidents. But he talks about, he calls it using idealization instead of visualization.
Yeah.
And what he means is like seeing myself, this is what's been working for me, seeing myself feeling good and having a great day, and seeing everyone else around me having a great day. And I've even been imagining people from the district bringing me in and going, we love the work you do, here's your office, we got a new job for you. And then living it and enjoying it like that in the moment, like all of the smells even or whatever. I'm not really, haven't added that part, but the colors and imagining other people's joy. Because I've noticed that when I feel all judgmental and such and fearful and not happy, I don't care about what other people are thinking. I think that my concern is so important that other people, there's no room to think about other people. And so as I learn to live happy now at 50, and believe me, I have to keep convincing myself that I can do this, because I've been feeling voices that like 7 years old, like, whoa, I didn't know this was down there, but like Darrell was saying, and we talk about it, it's like I'm not defining myself by it. That's the key. I'm defining myself by the wholeness that I didn't know existed at that time, right? Like I am redefining myself. Like the best thing happened today, because Kirk is in Germany, so we're recording early, and I literally rolled over at 9 a.m. a couple minutes after you called me. It was the perfect timing so I could do the show early, but last night I had a lot of angst going, but part of me was kind of like, oh, can I do this? And then I was like, I know this is the perfect thing to do. And then Darrell called me, and instead of, I'll do my morning routine and then I'll talk to Darrell, I was like, I'm talking to a human like Darrell right now is going to be better than me going right into what I normally do. And of course, my energy started moving. I started to get excited. And so I didn't do all the normal things I do, but at the end, I did some idealization. I was imagining Kirk happy and Darrell happy, and the energy of this show going out and blessing all the people who are watching and listening. And what something Darrell just said, and I'm forgetting exactly what you said that reminded me of this, but it was the thought that set me free was that the me that was being imagined and having troubles and struggle. Because I'm thinking, I'll be honest, like I'm doing my best to apply this, but my mind's going, how am I going to let go of all this stuff and transform? And I know God's doing it, but my mind was just struggling last night. But the thing that the golden key that turned it, and I kept golden keying it too. I kept going, no, God is there. God is doing it. But the thing that really flipped it was I go, that's not even me. That me doesn't have to change because that's not even me. And then I started just going, I am, that's me. I am. And like it took me into the now, I am. That's the only me. None of these stories, it's, you know, it's great to let them go, but the truth is they're not even real in the first place. And I just dropped back into this moment where it's amazing because last night I was like kind of having a moment. That's kind of what led me, like in the evening, my mind just started going down this road and I was blessing it. And the thing that was amazing within moments, because I'm like, how am I ever going to feel better for a moment? That's what my mind was telling me. But then I let it go. And within moments, my son came over like kind of unexpectedly. And like, this is what happens. If we're willing to just let it go, God, the good will walk in. We don't have to make this good.
Right.
And that's what you're saying, like God is good, like convincing us. I'm learning to stop being a workaholic, what was it about being miserable, about that T.C. Thomas Sikking said, successfully, I found the success coach of misery within myself, and I'm letting that go. And that part of me is just working way too hard when God's generosity is coming at every moment. And every part of me, musician, a writer, whatever, truth teacher, whatever you want to call, any surfing, all of it just comes to me when I let it be. And like I've been doing a lot of letting go meditations, and I'll see old memories, but then I'll see them through a new lens where I'm like, wait, that's not what really was happening. I thought that's what was happening, but God was there too. I just didn't know how to tap into it. And I've been clearing a lot. So I'll just quickly tell you, I got an email from an old fan of a band called Monkey Wagon I was in 1997, in 98. How many years is that? Almost 30 years ago?
Yeah.
He's emailing me for one particular song that he loved. And
this was a Facebook message.
A Facebook message. He found me,
Yeah.
And so eventually I found my other buddy. I found the song he wanted, and I emailed it to him. It didn't take too long, but so another friend of mine wasn't as excited as I was to get this guy the music. So I went down another channel. And so eventually I asked him, "Why? How do I know you? Or like, what's the connection, right?" And so two things happened. Like I've been rewriting the story that all the judgment about myself was never real. And I had an amazing experience with our buddy Cliff Simon I told Darrell about, but I could talk about that another time, where I just realized I heard Cliff's voice tell me, you need to start dancing more because you stopped because you were afraid, but everyone's afraid. You just didn't have a mentor at that time to tell you it's normal. So I believed that fearful voice and I ran away from it. Darrell's talked about stories in his life like that. So I'm coming back to myself. So this guy tells me, in 1997 or 98, he was in Davis, California. We were living in San Diego, but we drove up there to play at a house party outside of because there's a Whole Earth Festival that happened every year. And that, if you've never been to Davis, it's actually kind of a cool town. Have you ever been there?
No.
It's a very small town. It's rural kind of, but just nice, friendly people. There's a college there. But you could just walk around. It's just like a relaxing place to be. And so we would drive up there, and we played this show. And this guy didn't have anywhere to stay, and he ran into a friend. So this is back in the day when strange people we were in a band, so strange people would just be staying at our house. So this guy, Cody, somehow knew this guy. So this fellow that reached out to me, I forget his name, because I couldn't quite make it out from the Facebook, but he was in Davis and had nowhere to stay. So he knew this guy, Cody, who said, why don't you come over to this party where Monkey Wagon is playing, which was our band. So the guy came over, and he all he remembers from the experience was being welcomed. So apparently there was a bathtub full of sangria. There was all these, quote, beautiful hippie chicks hugging him and welcoming him. And all he remembers from me was
this sounds like this sounds like my idea of if I ended up at the Manson Ranch.
Right.
All like the hippie chicks hugging me, a bathtub full of sangria.
Yeah, this is like Manson house minus the
Manson.
Manson, yeah, exactly. That's right. Manson house minus Manson, whatever he was getting into. So, but the things that he remembers is he said that night he was thinking, I wish my life could be like this forever.
Wow.
And it turned out that he's a black man, and at that time he said it was very like he didn't know he loved that kind of music, but he was like the way all of us, mostly white people, welcomed him in, like totally changed his mind and made him feel more loved and accepted and appreciated. And I think changed the way he looked at things. And the thing he said, he remembers the smile on my face to this day.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I wrote this story that I was like some negative creep back there, and the music wasn't that.
Wow. You actually, in your mind, thought that was like a Manson experience.
Yeah.
When meanwhile, it was like this wonderful,
He saw the
enlightening, like loving, incredibly healing, perspective changing event for everyone else there.
Right. And now now that I've been doing the healing, he came to me to pass that healing back to me. And then I listened to the song, and I thought it was going to be terrible because, you know, I had judged it like, oh, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I was like, wow, it's not necessarily my cup of tea of music that I would make now, but it is an amazing song. And the way I was singing, I was like, wow, I didn't know I was singing that well at that time, because the professional misery person in my head was telling me otherwise, man. And so it pays to clear that out. This morning I wrote down, after I had let go of the stress, and then we can bring Kirk in a minute. I wrote down, when I am happy, I'm under no pressure to undo, outdo, or overdo anything.
That's true.
It's a totally different
we're magnetic because we're magnetic.
Yeah.
And that's why that guy's came into your life now too, because you're letting go of that other mentality, that self-punishing mentality, that restrictive mentality, which is actually repulsive. It repels.
It really is.
It repels love and generosity. And now this guy, that's the incredible part. This couldn't have come at any other time.
Yeah.
This guy now, all of a sudden, your mind is changing much that now your past is being changed.
Yeah, that's right.
It's changing
true.
so much that you're changing your past.
And I think, and then how this stuff all works together is, then the condition, say you've manifested some condition that has to do with like lack in some way or health.
Yeah.
I'm no longer the person that even manifested that thing. So that condition has to change because it's not me anymore. That doesn't apply to me. And that's the beauty of metaphysics. This is a very, a very real and scientific way of living. And I'm learning that in a new way. Mind, there's an old voice, what are you stupid for even trying to believe this stuff, you know? And it's like, I get to assert within myself, no, I'm believing this stuff because it's principle. And this is what Emma Curtis Hopkins says. This is the one time sometimes your mind is good. I calmly reason, like the father figure within me calmly reasons with myself. No, I'm getting inner guidance that every time I trust it, it works.
It does.
It always works. I have so many examples of it working in the past. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to stick with this path because it's my choice. And let's just see what happens. And yesterday I was laughing because I affirmed, I believe in the truth and it sets me free now. And it just, in the moment, it struck me as so funny that all I'm trying to do is to get myself to believe in the truth that's already true. This stuff is already true for us. And so it takes so much of the stress and strain out of this because it's already true for us. We don't have to work hard for it, although we will be inspired to do more. But it won't be hard
joyful.
work.
Yeah,
it's
it'll be
joyful.
delightful.
People will think, just like this show, people think, how much research do you guys do? We're like, research? It's just what we read and talk about and think about all the time. But, from the outside, it looks like there's a lot of work, but it's really joyful, and it's because we're interested in it.
Well, are you ready for our 3 breaths?
Are we doing the ones from that I said the other
right
day?
here?
Yeah. Okay, so here's part of the thing you got to remember is this is what I'm learning again. My happiness does not depend on anything anyone else thinks.
That's right.
And it's not me sticking it to any. It's actually clearing out all the blame and the judge. And this is the truth. One of the aspects of truth that sets me free is that my joy, my health, my money has nothing to do with so I don't have to struggle with them I can bless them. And Darrell said it in a funny way a while back, and we shared it on this show. You know, the let them have it thing?
Yeah, let them have it. Just
Yeah.
let them have it.
It's just like it's turning that phrase when some people
I'm gonna let them have it.
Yeah, but
But it means I'm gonna let them have that. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna allow it to upset me or think it's gonna in some way get in the way of my good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fear them. I'm not gonna
That's
have
right.
it. I'm just gonna, because we all reap what we sow.
Yeah, because you might have a dream, and like I do, and someone else might say, "Oh, you better wait until this," but let them have it because that's the way they want to see it. And I find that when I let people have it, the contention goes away.
That's right.
And we can be friends. We can be friends at least in the moment. Not to say I have to hang out with everyone, but like it can turn every interaction into a loving interaction.
Because it's the practice of non-resistance.
That's right. So. Yeah, and Jesus was like that. He would speak the truth, and then if they didn't want it, he let them have whatever they had.
Yeah.
So let's take a deep breath. Whoever it is, whatever it is, let them have it.
Or should we add the?
Yeah, if you got something to add, go
It's
for it.
right there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
Whoever it is, whatever it is, I let them have it.
That is better. Yes. Whoever it is, whatever it is,
I
let them have it. Let's thank Chief Engineer Jeff Comfort out there in Kansas City, Kansas. Everyone loves him, man. Each week.
He takes us
Right into the comfort zone. All right. Coming up next, Kirk Kjeldsen. The Dr. Kirk Kjeldsen, as we now know him, motivates listeners to live successfully via happiness. Live successfully via happiness with today's reading, Active Happiness. And you're going to get to hear the Sikking reading from Kirk that set this whole thing off. So thank you for listening to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, live from Middle School Studios in beautiful downtown Culver City, the heart of Screenland.
Does Kirky know he could turn on his mic and his camera? Do you want to hear something amazing about this coin, Ed?
Yeah.
Okay, so the...
Can you show it to him?
that's
people
right,
so they know what, I'll hold it for you.
Well, because stick it up there, all the way into the camera. Well, it's the Great Seal. It's on the back of your dollar bill, and it's the front side with the eagle, and in its right Italian, it has olive branch, and in the left, it has arrows. Well, the eagle is always facing toward the olive branch because the United States is always to be centered on peace as a peaceful nation. And the arrows, this is just the surface, the literal meaning of these symbols. And it holds the arrows in its left hand because that means it will fight to defend this peace and freedom if necessary. But also the left hand represents, or the left Italian represents reason.
And how your Italians call a talon Italian.
Yes, that's where it came from. And the right hand or talon is faith. And arrows also are symbolic of aiming. Like they shoot and you take careful aim. And what this means is, and the olive branch's peace is also synonymous with love. So what this means is, it's a message for everyone, because our consciousness is like driving a car. We're constantly correcting. We don't just say,
yeah, that's true.
I'm going to go, to New York City from Los Angeles, and I just aim the car east and step on the gas all the way, put the pedal to the metal.
Right.
No, I have to navigate. I have to put on the gas, put on the brake. I'm constantly correcting and directing my mind. So what this represents symbolically is we use reason, like we're talking in today's show, we use reason to aim our thinking back to faith, love, and peace.
Yes.
And the goal is to always keep our mind, that's why the eagle is looking that way, focused in that direction. Keep returning to peace, faith, love, good, and use reason and the arrows as discipline to aim toward, to keep using, to keep course correcting. Like reason is to course correct, but we have to keep our focus. The true north is always faith and love.
That's great.
Isn't that amazing? It's on the coin. Hopefully Kirk will start loving American symbols again.
Yeah, I showed it. All right. We're going to bring in
Are you going to use the magic?
Oh, you go for it. Go for it. Kirky,
Eddie.
you ready to rock and roll?
I am.
Are you enjoying the show?
Yeah, it's great as always. It's
Coming
interesting.
together.
I saw you doing something under the table. I thought, what the heck is he doing?
Oh, when Gidget came up?
And then I realized there was a dog under.
I know. She comes in and she's like insists. She puts her head right in my hand. She's so sweet. She's here again. Yeah, she's a good, what do they call those therapy animals?
Yeah.
She's definitely the funniest thing, studio therapy animal. She really brings it, the truth of what we're saying, man. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I've been feeling my skin crawling. There's so much energy moving because I've been tapping back into art and the music, and like, so after packing that musket so hard, I'm like, what is going on with me, man? Because it is bursting out of me, and like, yeah, I brought out my tap shoes the other day out of the garage. Just started, tapping around because I was at Costco, and this was after Cliff Simon's voice came into my head about dancing, and like, my feet started to remember what I did when I was like in 6th grade. I used to take tap dancing, and it's like all coming back, and it's like, like just like when I was ripping you guys a new one about that podcast. Sometimes it's ripping out of my skin, like I don't care. Let me use the restroom. I'll be right back.
Is Kirky happy?
Yeah, it's a good show. Interesting stuff.
Too bad you're not interested in this stuff.
Oh, I am. I love that there's a dog just sort of hanging out in the background there.
Yeah, I'm letting her rest. That's Gidget.
Is it hot there?
It's very, very hot, but not as hot as it was in Florida last week.
Yeah, Florida's the worst.
I was there.
Not the worst, but Florida's weather is tough.
I know, but it's so beautiful.
The humidity is brutal.
Lori and I both were in agreement. We said, if it wasn't this hot, we'd move tomorrow. It is so beautiful. Every neighborhood, all the people, just friendly, no matter what. It was just incredible. And we went to many different spots. Took boats, saw Burt Reynolds' last house, saw Tiger Woods' house.
Burt Reynolds' toupee was actually floating in one of those floaty chairs in the pool. It was amazing. There was 3 of them. It was incredible.
No, were there?
It waved.
No, he passed away.
Waved. The toupee waves to the people that are going by in the boats. It's amazing. We ready to roll?
Yeah. William Shatner's 98 years old, and he still shows up on, what's that show? Who's Under the Mask? You know that singing show?
Masked Singer.
The Masked Singer. 98. He's 98.
Really?
He's 98.
Whoa. That's crazy. I didn't know
made
that.
like $1 billion with Priceline doing.
Yeah.
When they were first coming out, I guess he took stock options instead of a regular salary, and apparently more money doing those couple commercials than he made
Yeah.
his entire, film and TV career.
Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome, man. That's some funniest thing stuff, man. Yeah, that's why he has, doesn't he have the thing step out boldly or something on the.
No, it's from the show. Boldly go where no man has gone.
Oh, it
But
just says boldly go, I
yeah.
think. Yeah, but it goes well with our show. We tried to listen to that audio book once, but it's more of like a Hollywood telling
Yeah,
of
it's a Hollywood
metaphysics.
tell all more than it is.
You know, it's which is good if you're like not if you're not reading metaphysics on a regular basis. It's a nice gateway drug. Um, but all right, all right, everyone, welcome back to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. We have our good friend Kirk Kjeldsen on the show today. He's been sitting by so patiently. That's why we recorded early. He's in Germany. Look at him laughing and
Well,
giggling
because I could tell he was like bracing himself. And
for
then he,
Dr. Kirk.
yeah, and then he kind of smiled, like, thank God they didn't say that.
Yes. We could, if he wanted to throw his weight around, he could be one of those educators who tells everyone he's a doctor, but he keeps it on, as Darrell and his friends at the meetings that he attends call on the down low.
Well, I think because he knows that doesn't define him. He's so much more than how can you say,
Yeah, I know. That's why we love him, Matt. We've had a lot of great conversations that have saved my hide at times when I needed to hear some truth, and so he's a great part of our lives. So welcome to the show, Kirk. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. It's nice to be here and be listening to you and be part of it. So thanks for having me.
You are welcome. And so you've been sitting there listening. What kind of things are going through your mind as we sit here together?
Yeah, I find it interesting thinking about consciousness as a responsibility and happiness as a choice because those aren't things I think I learned in school. And I'm not blaming school. It's just not really particularly part of education, thinking much about consciousness or what our responsibility and our attitude is. Maybe they teach more of that now. I don't know because I haven't been to school in a long time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a more important subject than this really to be discussing and talking about. And I like the fact that Darrell had a really sort of practical metaphor or way of looking at consciousness as driving a car because
Mhm.
I mean, it would be nice to think that, oh, I think that was probably a stumbling block for philosophy, psychology, religion, all these things when I was a young man or a teenager because I thought, well, of course, those enlightened people are enlightened. They were always that way. They just seem enlightened. And I don't see any point of even ever trying to accomplish or achieve that because it just seems so far away, very impossible, especially in this material world. But with that sort of example Darrell gives of driving a car, it's like you constantly have to change direction. Maybe, there's traffic, maybe an animal runs in front of the street, maybe there's a detour, it's always in flux. And it's a very freeing, and takes all the pressure off knowing that you're not going to achieve some state of consciousness that is going to carry you the rest of your days. It's going to be a day by day, moment by moment thing. That's not a negative thing, but that's just the nature of it. And also in meditation, which Darrell, really encouraged me to consider and try decades ago, and I did, and I found a lot of value in it. Consciousness, when you start meditating, you start to see that, oh, you have these thoughts that just bubble up that you don't really control, or you don't know why you're thinking them, but you have a choice of whether or not you want to focus on them, dwell on them, enlarge in them, or just observe them and let them go. And I think that, knowing some of these things about consciousness makes it something much more elastic that you can sort of influence. And it's amazing how much you can really influence your consciousness, and then how your consciousness then informs your experience in the outside world. I mean, I know that when my consciousness is in a pretty clean, positive sort of place, in the world seems to be a completely different place than when my consciousness is full
Yeah.
of negativity, limitation, fear, lack, all these other things. So
Yeah.
I should say what I was saying about driving the car, because we did that during the break, so the people listening on the podcast won't hear it, but the YouTubers saw it.
Oh, that's
And in
right.
a
Yeah.
nutshell, what I was saying was I was driving home the point that my consciousness, every person's consciousness, is the same, in that we have to constantly consciously direct and change course throughout the day. We have to use direction, we have to guide it, and it's like driving a car. You know, I said I don't just get in my car if I want to go to New York City and Los Angeles, aim it east, and then just punch it, you know, put the pedal to the metal and drive through houses and, you know, just to go straight there. No, I'm constantly correcting and directing. And that's what our consciousness is. But it'd be wonderful if it was taught in school, as this is the most important thing you need to know about yourself, is how to work your mind, so you will live successfully.
Yes.
And just like driving a car, I have no problem driving my car. I don't even think twice about directing and correcting. I don't think twice about it as being, I don't think, oh no, my car's starting to drift to the left. Oh no, this is horrible. And just let it keep going to the left. I just, you know, gently bring it back to the center of the lane as I'm going, you know, as the lanes curve. And oh no, this lane is curving and I'm starting to go straight and into the next lane. I don't even think that way. I just bring it into the lane. And you know what? As I course correct, I enjoy the trip. I'm enjoying the drive. And that's what we're saying about our consciousness. It takes effort to correct and direct my mind. But when I do it, I feel good about it. It gives me a good feeling. It brings up a good emotion. And it really is, where are we steering? Are we letting ourselves just let anybody say whatever they want during the day affect me? Because I do that sometimes. And how far am I going to drive down the road off course because I'm thinking of that person and how bad whatever they said made me feel at that time? And here's the craziest thing. I can't even remember. This shows you how insignificant, just like we were saying about the ABBA example.
Yeah.
Like those things that all the critics were complaining about that ABBA wasn't singing about because they were singing optimistic songs or songs that made people feel good. They were getting lambasted for not singing about terrible conditions in the world during that time. And just like I can't recall any of those things that happened during the time that ABBA was singing delightful songs, but I do remember a lot of the lyrics that make me feel good from ABBA songs. The same thing is true with something that upset me last week. I can't even recall probably any. If you said, Darrell, last Tuesday you were upset about something, what was it? I'd go, last Tuesday? What? I can't.
Oh, yeah.
But the direction my mind took me will have effects in my life this week. Meaning, that's the consequences.
Right.
Do I want to keep going in those directions emotionally? So I've become quicker. I mean, just like I said, all of us are driving the car of our consciousness. We know none of us get a break from that, but it can be a delightful adventure, of a delightful drive.
Yeah.
And as long as I keep steering towards the things of the happy, the healthy, the optimistic, the spiritual ideas of truth about God and what really is real and everlasting, like the joy that those ABBA songs brought millions and millions of people and still do, and the insignificance of the misfortunes and disappointments or perceived affronts in my life, the quicker I let go of those, well, our circumstances and the journey, it's two different drives. It's a whole, like Kirk said, I could live in two different total realities, and I do, when I'm happy and when I'm dismissing my good.
That's right.
Because the only time I'm unhappy is when I'm really just dismissing my good. That's it.
Yep. I think it's important too that Emma Curtis Hopkins has got me realizing that only one of those things is real. And I know people who live more, a friend of mine is like, I mean, he's more on board with me now, but he's more intellectually driven. I always say, I'm more of an emotional truth guy. And I always laugh because he'll fold his arms when I tell him stuff. And so now I just point out, the arms are folded, are they? And he'll start laughing. But in a very real way, the one that feels good, which is why we don't remember any of the other stuff, is because only the good is real.
Yes.
And we're all going to see that when we leave these bodies. And I was thinking, my mind was pointing to, what do you mean there's nothing serious? What about this? And I realized the stuff that part of my mind will point to is just stuff that's other people who believed that things are serious created the illusion of this thing that's happening. But it's just because they forgot that nothing's really serious. We don't have to take things from other people or fight other people for it. God is giving it to us at all times. And one of the things I want to say, and Kirk kind of touched on this in the beginning when we were talking about that other podcast, because we're talking the part where the rubber hits the road, I guess pun is good. That's a good pun to intend right now, is when we have to reprogram our subconscious mind, because I've been driving in certain directions that someone else told me to drive in, and I thought it was me, and I thought feeling bad was part of the journey. And so now I'm like, holy smokes, I have to be humble enough to go, that's not really me. It feels bad. And build my faith that if I let go of, it's weird, it's almost like the sure thing. Even though it feels bad, it's a sure thing. I let go of the sure thing of that fear and open up to the real sure thing, which is joy. And then I get to feel like a kid again. And then I get to make music in a new way again. And then I get to get emails from people from 1997. And the mystery starts to open up. And then I start sending more love to my friends. And then I become a light unto the world. So it doesn't matter how long you've been driving in the wrong direction. It's just a golden opportunity to re-enter the truth, the now. And God will use all of that time for good. Even something about whatever the locusts have eaten, you'll be restored and returned.
Well, that's proof, because that guy told you a whole different, your past has changed now.
Yeah, and I was able to talk to another young friend of mine who's a musician, and he calls me from time to time. He's like more of like a schooled pianist guy, and he was saying, when he goes to practice, his mind will be judging him. And because I had that experience, I was able to tell him, I can tell you with 100% certainty, don't believe anything that voice tells you. Just bless it and keep having fun playing and keep doing what that will, like you're saying, reap the rewards moving forward. You'll remember that way more than the nonsense that your mind was telling, which you won't even remember. All you'll remember is, why did I not do what I enjoyed at that time, or whatever, but I love the car thing. And I just wanted to point out that there are these sometimes it takes a little more persistence. If I've convinced myself that driving down that or the way that I didn't want to go for a long period of time, it just takes more persistence, and that's where it pays to have friends to talk to or podcasts to listen to and books to read. We, all of us, multiple times a day, Kirk and Darrell and I are sitting down, refreshing our browser, restoring, being transformed by the renewing of our mind, talking to each other, doing whatever we got to do. Because it doesn't matter. Yesterday I had an amazing morning, and then it felt like my subconscious took over again. But as soon as I come back to meditating, praying, as soon as the truth re-enters my brain, nothing was lost. I actually learned something from going off track a little bit more again. So
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up subconscious there because I think it's funny that our consciousness is a choice and to a great extent, and consciousness is elastic and plastic, and one person can look at one event in one way, and another person can look at the same event in a different way, and neither one is right or wrong. They just have different consciousness of that event. But then you brought up subconscious, which I also find is interesting because then my subconscious is informing my consciousness. And how do I work on that? Because how can I consciously work on my subconscious? That was something I always struggled with. Like, you know what I mean?
yes.
I I want to consciously choose my subconscious thoughts, but because of the nature of what subconscious thoughts are, I'm not always consciously aware of them. And that's why I found that podcast that Darrell sent me. It's funny because I'm not a really big podcast guy. And of course, when he first sent it to me, I thought, here we go again. But I thought, everything Fazaro sent me over the years, there's always been something of value in it. So check it out. I listened to this podcast and they talked a lot about is it Joseph Murphy?
Yeah.
And they were talking about practical ways in which these two guys were talking about practical ways in which they can sort of inform and rewire their subconscious early in the morning. And some of those are things that whether I'm aware of it, I do, or whether I'm not aware of it, I do as well. And some of these guys were talking about just sort of basic I am statements they do early in the course of their day to sort of, sort of establish a consciousness and work on their subconsciousness by just taking practical steps to sort of create and recreate a new pattern for themselves. And these guys were talking about trying some of these things. And then I thought, wow, that's really interesting because they're not necessarily thinking about how to change their subconscious. They're acting. They're acting through sort of writing or through repetition. Or one guy had written a bunch of I am statements and then he recorded them and played them on a loop every morning while he was stretching. And then it was sort of rewiring his subconscious, and he saw that it was affecting the course of the rest of the day. He was sort of unconsciously embracing some of these roles and intentions that he was trying to, uh, put somewhere in his subconscious. And it was funny too because the practice he was doing, I found these guys had also had a guest on their show in another episode is this guy Ryan Holiday, who's famous for recently reintroducing or bringing back the Stoics into sort of popular culture and sharing Stoic thinking with a new generation. And when Marcus Aurelius was writing his meditations, he wasn't thinking, I'm writing these meditations as a bestseller book. He was writing them for himself.
Yes, it was his own
It
little
was
morning routine.
the same practice those guys were
Yes.
doing that I think was then helping him get through the day. And his days, obviously, I mean, I assume everybody on your show probably knows who Marcus Aurelius was, but he was the king of the Roman Empire, which is like at the time it was the biggest empire of the world. His days were probably full of decision making, stress, bad news, all sorts of situations. And he was doing this practice to sort of rewire how he approached everything. And I think, and I also heard you guys talking about this on a recent episode, how Marcus Aurelius was sort of a pre-Christian or an early Christian, and a lot of his sort of practices are similar to those of the early Christians and early sort of Christian Judeo religions. And before the show, I looked up, I was like, I remember somebody, it might have been you guys talking about it 10 years ago, but it was sort of the etymology of the word God and what does God mean. And the old Hebrew etymology of the word God is I am.
Yeah.
Uh, the term God was I am. And when you think about it, I feel like that is underlining this whole sort of topic we're talking about, how God is consciousness, consciousness is God. I am. Those guys were talking about lists of I am a father, I am a businessman, I am an entrepreneur, I'm a husband, I'm a son. And then they were moving into other more specific statements about who they wanted to be and who they were. And whether it's Marcus Aurelius, whether it's this podcast Darrell had, whether it's Ryan Holiday and the Stoics, whether it's Joseph Murphy, whether it's Neville Goddard, whatever it is, it seems to be, you know, consciousness is it's our job, and our religion is informed by our beliefs on who we are and how things are. I don't know where I'm going with this. I think I lost the track there, but it seemed like everything was coming together when you were talking about all these topics and how, wow, I mean, what I believe actually doesn't come from anywhere outside of me. It comes from somewhere deep within my subconscious of all these things I've read about religion, all these things that have been maybe told to me or taught to me as a young kid, and but going back to that whole metaphor or example that Darrell was using, I can adjust those things. And those things will continue to be adjusted whether I want them to or not, based on what I'm allowing to influence my consciousness from day to day. So, for example, if I wake up and I read some of this stuff, whether it's Marcus Aurelius or Unity's Daily Word or Emmett Fox or whatever it is that you like to read to start your day, that will inform and color my consciousness at the beginning of the day. Or if I wake up and if I look at CNN or Fox News or whatever, that will inform and color my consciousness, you know. And the material world and the situations that I have awaiting me over this day are not, are already fixed, but how I adjust my consciousness and what I bring to that situation will yield totally different results. You know what I mean? If I come in
Yes.
Yes.
believing in lack, believing the world is going to the dogs, believing that I have to do more, believing that I'm not enough, believing that everyone's out to get me. Then when I go into my workday, uh, that sort of consciousness will be probably reinforced in that, okay, people will be feeling that from me. They'll be feeling that I must believe in lack, and therefore maybe I'm not the kind of person they want to get into business with, or I'm not the kind of person they want to believe if I'm sharing something about a subject. But if I come the opposite way, believing there's enough for everybody, uh, the universe is not a universe of lack. Uh, I believe that I am capable, that I'm not a failure. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It'll inform the way that I go about my work and about the way people interact with me. And yeah, I wish I could be more articulate than this. It feels like you guys opened up a huge can of metaphysical worms that I just I got really excited to hear about, and I tried to add my 2 cents, and I probably
Well, I love what
add
you're
a
saying because you're
whole other
saying,
can of worms to it. But
no, I love the worms you're adding to it because I like what you're saying is that all these different approaches talk about the same thing, which is what I'm learning right now. And I'm learning it from like Emma Curtis Hopkins, Raymond Charles Barker, this guy, Brown Landone, I've been reading. It's like, how do I take conscious authority over the direction of where my subconscious mind goes each day? And that's why I liked yesterday, I really clicked in with his idealization versus visualization, which is I felt myself feeling great and I felt the joy and the clarity flowing through me. And I felt I had one of those moments where my subconscious mind felt, oh, we could trust this guy. He knows what he's saying. And it let go of its old way of thinking and got in line with me. And I had the most amazing day afterwards. And because we're talking about it and writing it down like those guys were talking about, which is what Emma Curtis Hopkins insists that we must do if we really want to get this stuff. When there's a miracle, write it down. When something goes our way, write it down. When we do something and it works, write it down. And I just read this morning from Emmett Fox, which is all things we read and learn and listen to are not created equal, right? There's principles at work. And how much are those things that we're listening to and reading and hearing abiding by the principles that actually govern the universe, right? Like that's what, for me, Darrell's helped me to see. That's why the simple stuff that's kind of, it's both simple and practical, and it gets it across to me in a way that I can relate to. This morning, Emmett Fox in Sermon on the Mount said, if man really were left without a simple practical test of religious truth, he would assuredly be in a sad plight. But happily, this is not the case. Jesus, the most profound and at the same time the most simple and practical teacher the world has ever known, has provided for this need and has given us an utterly simple and universally applicable test for truth. It is a test that any man or woman of any kind, anywhere, can easily apply for himself. It is as simple and direct as the acid test for gold. It is the simple question, does it work? This test is so staggeringly simple that most clever people have passed it over as not worth considering, forgetting that all the great elemental things of life are simple. Yet just this is the fundamental test for truth. Does it work? Because truth always works. The truth always heals.
You know what goes along with what you were sharing, even though you didn't realize it, was the reading.
Oh yeah, let's get the reading going.
yeah,
Do you have it?
do.
Oh. Oh.
You
What's
do or you don't?
what's
That's Zorro coming back to life. This is great.
Oh.
okay? Oh. Okay, happiness reading. It's from Creative Responsibility, page 84. That reading, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Happiness or unhappiness never just happens. It is created step by step, thought by thought, according to each person's opinions and responses to the world and everything in it. Abraham Lincoln said, "Most people are as happy as they make up their minds to be." How happy do you want to be? Being happy is not being without problems. Happiness does not mean not having a care in the world. Happiness is knowing how to solve problems. Happiness is not sitting around not doing anything, but rather knowing how to put the joy of living into everything you do, including the drudgery. You can be happy or happier if you make up your mind to be. Your happiness or your unhappiness is your responsibility, and you can change your state of happiness. That's the reading.
What are you saying to yourself about yourself?
Uh-huh.
That's the best question to ask yourself on a regular basis. What are you saying? What are you saying to yourself about yourself?
Yeah, and it's actually a very liberating way of looking at it because your happiness or your unhappiness is your responsibility. There's no one to blame, but also you have the power to adjust it if need be.
Yeah.
And obviously, yeah, there are people in jail. There are people with certain situations that are not from the outside easy. But I'll never forget. I remember I was like a young man and I read this poem Invictus, and I found out that it's that poem. There was a Victorian era British poet, not a very famous poet, but he had written a poem called Invictus that sort of ends with "I'm the captain of my soul."
Yes.
And Nelson Mandela, apparently, when he was imprisoned for all those years, that was a poem that he had with him in prison, and he sort of read and meditated on that poem quite a bit, and it seemed like he was already living like a free man in that prison. And eventually he was freed, but I think he was already obviously not freed in body, but freed in spirit. And I think his example showed that, you know, happiness, freedom, these sort of things are an inside job. And I've also met a lot of people, and myself included, from time to time, that out in the free world with my legs, with money in my pocket, and with a job and everything, I can be very unhappy from time to time when the car gets off course. I also like the sailing metaphor because I know you guys have. I know Darrell's in the Coast Guard, and I know you use sailing metaphors, and I know they used sailing metaphors in the Bible as well. And unlike a car, it's like with a sailboat. You have to adjust your sails from time to time. The wind
Yeah.
is changing, the seas are always changing, the weather's always changing. If you don't regularly adjust your sails, you're going to get blown off course all the time. But you just have to constantly keep adjusting. And I feel like consciousness is the same deal.
Yeah.
And if you're not consciously adjusting and readjusting your consciousness, you're subconsciously adjusting and readjusting your consciousness with social media, with other people's opinions, with all sorts of other stuff as well. So you might as well take responsibility for it rather than letting the world just dictate how your happiness and consciousness are going to be. I find this stuff incredibly practical and incredibly valuable. It was funny that you said earlier that I wish we had learned this in school. I think actually in some of the schools I went to, people were always planting seeds. I remember there were a couple of teachers I had who were sort of talking about Marcus Aurelius. I also had a couple of teachers who were sort of dropping in some of the transcendentalists, and
Emerson.
but at the time I was an angry young kid who, you know, my consciousness wasn't open enough to receive those tips. And I also think a lot of public school teachers, as Ed can probably attest to, are overworked, underpaid, stressed, and probably their consciousness is in need of adjustment and readjustment. But the good news is we all can work on our consciousness right here, right now.
That's right. Doesn't matter how much we're getting paid or whatever, it's all consciousness. And if we want to get paid even more, let's adjust our consciousness and let it in, let the light in.
Well, yeah, you brought up a good point because if I'm not consciously correcting and directing my thoughts, well, then the world is going to do it for me, and it does. I could look at something on YouTube and go down a rabbit hole, and it starts affecting my emotions and how I'm looking at the world, and then how I'm reacting to people and things. But most of all, like you said, it's affecting my conscious atmosphere. And people are going to start picking up on that and judging me according to my conscious atmosphere without even me saying a word.
Yep. The subconscious is, I mean, just from my own experience right now, like it's always attempting to get me back to the belief system that got ingrained in there a long time ago. So it will want me to click on that thing that's going to reinforce that old belief system. So if you're going through a period like I am where you really want to start shifting something, I got to just become vigilant, which just means awake to what my subconscious mind will generate the emotions that it requires or the thoughts that it needs me to go keep doing the thing that I did before. It's so, our imagination, our subconscious is so powerful in terms of the way it affects the way I see the world. Like, if otherwise metaphysics doesn't work, because when it's in alignment, we experience prosperity, joy, health, amazing relationships. When it's out, it will have us perceiving the exact opposite, and it's real. I mean, it will feel very, very real, right? That's why fear is false evidence appearing real. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fear. So just know sometimes it's going to come up, and that's where faith and reaffirming these things. But it's just crazy how I'm just watching my subconscious. It'll keep trying to slip back in and get me to do the thing that I did before. And because all of a sudden I'll start uncovering the fear that's underneath that subconscious pattern going, oh, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. And I have to be the captain of my own ship. And I have to keep rereading this something or affirming something that reminds me of the truth when that subconscious storm starts. You know, that's what Jesus is talking about. We can calm the storm, but we have to learn. That's why when Jesus woke up on the boat, he's like, what are you idiots doing? You could have calmed that storm yourself. And they're like, Jesus, save us. And he's like, you know, he calms the storm. He goes back to sleep. But he tells the disciples, like, use your powers. You do this too. You can do this, and we can do this. And we just have to keep learning. And it takes audacity and boldness to believe this. But it works, like Emmett Fox says. I mean, I can only say it works because I practice it. It works. Don't believe me or Darrell or Kirk. See it and see it work. And it will work as quick as I allow it to work. That's what I've discovered recently. It will work because anytime I'm feeling bad, it's only because I'm telling myself terrible stuff. And so I was with my son the other day, and that was happening. And I was like, how fast can I turn this around? And it was amazing. Within minutes, I was back on track. And then I had to work on it again later. But I'm just getting better at better, and we just get better and better and better at doing it.
Well, and it goes away. Otherwise, people would never be able to quit smoking.
True.
Psychologists call that the state of homeostasis in the mind.
Right.
When we form bad mental habits,
Yeah.
and they could seem like this is what's the good news is. The good news is you can't just say, well, this is because of the way I was as a child, so now it's in my subconscious, it'll never go away.
Right.
Because you don't learn how to smoke when you're learning how to walk. You know, you teach yourself how to smoke later on in life. Mm-hmm. But then when you try to quit now that you created a groove in your subconscious that associates being cool, looking good, impressing others, whatever these ideas were that got you on the path to smoking cigarettes. Well, when you start to quit, your subconscious mind wants to keep readjusting to a state of homeostasis psychologically.
Yeah.
So it keeps wanting to bring you back to, well, if you want to feel cool in this situation, a cigarette will help. If you want to feel at peace in this situation, that you're like in a higher emotional state than these other people and reduce the nerves you're feeling, have a smoke. But you got to ignore that for a little while and put your trust in, no, I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
To give me that. I don't need you anymore because it stopped working. And you could say, this no longer serves me. It stopped working, so I don't need you anymore. You could do things like that.
Yeah.
And your mind will come around. And then once it comes around, well, then there's a new homeostasis.
Yes.
And now the
that's
homeostasis is that of a non-smoker.
Right. And going back to the truth setting us free, if I know someone who's quitting recently, and she's been reading these books and stuff, and it's like the thing that really the person who's like a specialist insists, tell yourself, I want to feel good now. Like that's a big part of how you have to reprogram your brain. I want to actually feel good now, not this other thing that's like a placebo, that's like or whatever. And like reminding yourself, the reason I'm doing this is because I actually want to feel good. Because that part of me is going like, do this other thing, and it's like, but I actually want to feel good. We're gonna feel good. And then just step out, take one step at a time and move in the new direction.
We have a story about you.
We
Kirk.
do. Kirk, anything else you want to add before we wrap up the show?
No, I'm a big fan of your show, and it's a gift, and I'm really grateful that you guys share this stuff, and thanks for having me.
Oh yeah.
Are we gonna get charged twice for this episode?
Wow. Oh, because we went over time. Oh, by the way, Lois Conklin said, "Fun to catch you early and meet Kirky, who you mention every week. Fun that a notice came on my phone that it was time to listen." Yes.
I knew that was gonna happen. That's why I wasn't so concerned about the time shift, because I knew all our listeners would get a notice.
Yes.
We'll be back at our regular scheduled time next week. This was a special edition.
Live from Germany.
Well, you ready to hear this, Kirk? You might remember when this happened.
All right, well, 4 of Professor Kirk's students decided to go skiing for the weekend, and they were having such a good time that they decided to blow off the exam that they had scheduled. They called Professor Kirk and said,
We got a flat tire and deserve to take the exam at a rescheduled time.
Hearing the story, Professor Kirk agreed.
That is really just bad luck. Of course you can take the exam later.
Students got home and studied like mad all night. At the appointed time, Professor Kirk greeted them, placed them in 2 separate rooms to take the exam. The few questions on the first page were worth a minor 10% of the overall grade and were quite easy. Each student grew progressively confident as they took the test. When they turned to the second page, there were just 3 questions on the page worth 90% of the exam.
These are the 3 questions Professor Kirk put on the test. And remember, he separated them to separate rooms. Number 1, which tire was it? Number 2, how was it fixed? Number 3, where did this happen? Wait, he's remembering doing that.
Yeah.
Look how joyful. That was the best day.
You wondered if you were going to get a smiling Kirky, and there it is.
Yeah, remind him of his good old days.
Yes.
Well, I know that if it's a bad joke, you really like me, so you guys.
There you go. That's love. Well, thank you for being part of Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. Please subscribe and share the show with your friends.
And this is a special request. This is one of Kirky's favorite songs. Pa 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 pa. When this whole world gets me down and there's no love to be found, I close my eyes and soon I find I'm in a playground in my mind where the children laugh and the children play and we sing a song all day. My name is Kirky. I've got a nickel. I've got a nickel, shiny and new. I'm gonna buy me all kinds of candy. That's what I'm gonna do.
All right, everyone. Darrell and Ed love you. Thank you, Kirky.
We'll see you later. Get some rest. Good night.